So I want you to look around the room you're sitting in right now. I mean, just really take it in. Point up, point down. Now point left, right, forward, and backward.
And, doing that, you probably feel entirely confident that you've just mapped out the absolute physical boundaries of your reality,
Right, exactly. Like you've got it all covered. But what if I told you to point in the other 7 directions?
which just sounds completely absurd.
It does, because these are directions that are supposedly physically present in the room with you right now, branching off at perfect right angles to everything you know, but they're completely invisible to you.
Yeah, and it sounds absurd because we trust our perception implicitly. I mean, our brains just tell us that if we can't see a direction or, physically move our bodies through it, that direction simply does not exist.
And tearing down that fundamental biological assumption, that's our mission for today's deep dive. We are exploring the true hidden geometry of reality.
Which is such a wild concept to unpack.
Oh, it really is. And to do this, we're dissecting excerpts from this brilliant philosophical and cosmological dialogue called Episode 40, Part 8, Hidden Dimensions. It outlines the mind-bending theories of a figure known simply as the time traveler.
Yeah, and the time traveler's framework is it's so compelling.
Yes.
Because it doesn't just, hand you a dense equation and expect you to memorize it.
No, not at all.
Right. It actually forces us to confront how wildly ill-equipped the human animal is to comprehend the actual fabric of the cosmos.
We are so ill-equipped, but we're going to try anyway. We're going to stretch our minds past the limits of human biology and explore the real mathematical necessity of a universe built on 10 or even 11 dimensions.
It translates all that intimidating theoretical physics into a conversation about why reality looks the way it does to you, the listener.
Exactly. But, okay, before we go hunting for invisible dimensions, let's establish the baseline. Because we have to define what a dimension actually is and why we currently cap our reality at 4.
That's a good place to start. We can trace this progression pretty elegantly, actually.
Right, so let's break it down. If this 4-dimensional model works perfectly well for our everyday lives, from like driving a car to just getting older, why would scientists ever go looking for more? What's broken that needs fixing?
Well, to see what's broken, we first need to look at what works. A dimension, at its absolute core, is just an independent line of movement, a degree of freedom.
Okay.
So imagine you're standing on a perfectly straight, infinitely narrow railroad track. You can only move forward or backward. That single line of movement, that is one dimension.
Right, so one-dimensional living is just a straight road.
Exactly.
Huh?
Now imagine stepping off that track into a vast, flat, open field. Suddenly, you gain a new axis.
So I can still move forward and backward, but now I can also slide left and right.
Yeah, and that second independent direction makes the field two-dimensional.
Okay, making sense so far. And to build the everyday world we recognize, you just add the vertical axis, right? Up and down.
Yep, forward, backward, left, right, up, down. That covers literally every physical movement you or I will ever make in our lives.
Which gives us the classic 3 dimensions of space.
And for centuries, classical physics just stopped right there. 3 dimensions, done. But then Albert Einstein comes along and completely revolutionizes this picture.
Because he proved that time isn't just this separate thing.
Right. He showed that time is not some universal clock just ticking away independently in the background. It's pliable. It's actually inextricably woven together with those 3 dimensions of space.
Into a single, flexible fabric. Space-time.
Exactly. Giving us 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. 4 in total.
So here's my grounding question for you. This 4-dimensional model, Einstein's general relativity, it's incredibly successful.
Massively. It predicts the orbits of planets, the bending of starlight.
The expansion of the universe, it even makes the GPS in your smartphone work.
It does, yeah.
So if these 4 dimensions perfectly explain our daily lives, from dropping a coffee mug to the collision of black holes, why break it? Why do physicists need a 5th dimension, let alone 11?
Well, what's broken only becomes obvious when you try to merge Einstein's beautiful, smooth universe with the chaotic reality of the microscopic world.
Ah, right. The really small stuff.
Yeah. General relativity is one pillar of modern physics, right? It handles the massive cosmic scale. The other pillar is quantum mechanics, which governs the subatomic scale. Atoms, electrons, quarks.
The quantum realm.
Right. And individually, these 2 frameworks are arguably the most successful, rigorously tested theories in human history.
But there's a catch.
A huge catch. They fundamentally contradict each other.
Meaning, if you try to use both at the exact same time, the math completely falls apart.
It shatters. Literally shatters. See, general relativity assumes that the fabric of space-time is perfectly smooth. like a tightly pulled trampoline.
Okay, smooth geometry.
Yeah, no matter how closely you zoom in, it assumes the geometry remains continuous. But quantum mechanics tells us that at the absolute smallest scales down near what's called the Planck length, the universe is a frantic, boiling, jittery mess of probability.
Often called quantum foam, right?
Exactly, quantum foam. So you have a smooth, predictable geometric theory trying to govern a frantic, chaotic, probabilistic, microscopic world.
And I imagine they don't play well together.
Not at all. When you write equations attempting to combine them, say, if you want to figure out what happens at the exact center of a black hole where enormous mass is crushed down into a microscopic point.
Or you need both gravity and quantum mechanics to figure it out.
Right. The math yields impossible answers, just gives you infinite probabilities, which is a physicist's mathematical way of saying this is complete nonsense.
Wow.
Yeah. Physicists realized that if they restricted their equations to our standard 3 dimensions of space, gravity and quantum mechanics would just never reconcile.
And that friction, that mathematical nightmare, is exactly what sets the stage for string theory, isn't it? Which the time traveler's framework leans on heavily.
That's it, exactly. It wasn't that scientists just woke up one day and thought, hey, let's invent extra dimensions because it sounds exciting.
Like a sci-fi novel.
Right, they didn't just want a cool secret realm. They were backed into a mathematical corner. The equations unifying quantum mechanics and gravity only work if additional dimensions exist.
So string theory offered a way out.
It offered a radical shift in perspective. For the longest time, standard physics treated the fundamental building blocks of nature as point particles. Imagine an electron as just an infinitesimally small, dimensionless dot.
Just a tiny, solid billiard ball, no internal machinery.
But string theory proposes that if you could zoom in far past the limits of our current microscopes, you wouldn't find a solid dot at all.
You'd find strings.
Yes. You'd find a minuscule vibrating loop or filament of energy, an unimaginably tiny one-dimensional string.
Okay, I want to pause on that for a second because that's a massive conceptual leap. How does turning a dot into a string fix the clash between gravity and quantum mechanics? Like how does a one-dimensional string generate mass or electrical charge?
Think about a cello or a violin. The instrument only has a few strings, right? But those strings aren't limited to making a single sound.
Right, obviously.
Depending on how you pluck or bow a violin string, it vibrates at different frequencies. And each unique vibrational pattern creates a different musical note.
Okay.
String theory posits the exact same mechanism for the fundamental fabric of reality.
So the strings themselves are identical, but their movement dictates what they are.
Precisely that. If a string vibrates in one specific pattern, it manifests in our universe as an electron. If it vibrates in a different pattern, it manifests as a quark.
Oh, wow.
And crucially, the math shows there is a specific vibrational pattern that corresponds to the graviton, which is the hypothetical particle that carries the force of gravity.
So suddenly gravity isn't the smooth curve of space-time fighting against quantum chaos anymore?
No, it is just another note being played in the quantum symphony. It puts all the particles and all the forces onto the exact same mathematical sheet music.
Okay, that is undeniably beautiful, a really elegant idea. But here's where I hit a massive wall with the time traveler's math.
Where's that?
I know that for a string to produce all these different notes, to account for all the forces in the universe, it needs room to vibrate. But the math apparently demands 10 or 11 dimensions to provide enough degrees of freedom for those vibrations.
It does, yes.
Wait, 11 dimensions? I can't even picture a fifth dimension, let alone 11. How on earth are we supposed to visualize this? Where do the other 6 or 7 directions go?
Well, the short answer is they don't go anywhere you can visualize. And your inability to picture them isn't a personal failing at all.
Thank goodness.
It's actually a brilliant demonstration of evolutionary biology. The time traveler's framework really leans into this idea that our cognitive architecture is highly localized.
Meaning we are essentially walking around with legacy hardware in our heads.
That is highly accurate, actually. Just think about the environment that shaped the human brain. Over millions of years on the savannah, our ancestors survived by mastering a strictly three-dimensional world.
Right, if a leopard is stalking you, your brain needs to instantly calculate its speed, its distance, and its trajectory within a 3D grid.
Yeah. Exactly. Left or right, forward or backward, up or down. You needed to dodge predators, catch prey, avoid falling objects.
So if you stop to try and calculate a leopard's movement along a 7th spatial axis, you just get eaten.
Your lunch. There was just never any evolutionary pressure to understand hyperdimensional geometry. We simply do not have the dedicated hardware the neural circuitry to visualize 5 dimensions, let alone 11.
No child is born with an intuition for higher dimensions. It's that blank slate theory.
Right. These concepts take years of rigorous study to learn, and they can only ever be grasped through the language of equations, never mental pictures.
So it's basically like trying to run modern, incredibly complex 3D gaming software on an ancient black and white computer.
Yes.
Our brains just literally do not have the graphics card for 11D geometry.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
When physicists work with 11-dimensional space, they aren't picturing it in their minds. They're relying entirely on the mathematics to see what their biology cannot. The math becomes a proxy for our missing imagination.
Which is strangely comforting, honestly. I don't feel quite so bad about my lack of visualization skills anymore, but it does bring up a major logistical problem for me.
Okay, what's that?
If I accept that the equations demand 6 or 7 extra spatial dimensions, and I accept that my brain's ancient graphics card can't render them, where physically are they hiding?
Right.
Like, if there are 7 extra directions branching off in this room right now, why don't I accidentally swing my arm through one of them when I reach for my coffee?
To answer that, you have to completely reframe your concept of spatial scale.
Yeah.
The Time Travelers uses a classic analogy in physics to bridge this gap between human limitation and spatial scale. It's the ant on a garden hose analogy.
Oh, I love this one. Let's lay it out for the listener.
Sure. So imagine you are standing on a high balcony, looking way down at a massive lawn. And stretching all the way across that lawn is a bright yellow garden hose.
Okay, got it.
From hundreds of feet away, what does that hose look like to you?
It just looks like a thin, one-dimensional line, just a streak of yellow. I mean, I can trace its length from left to right, but it doesn't have any discernible thickness from up there.
Exactly. From your macroscopic perspective, far away, the hose only possesses 1 dimension length. But now you leave the balcony, you walk all the way down to the lawn, and you get on your hands and knees right next to the hose.
Getting a close-up view.
Up close, you see a tiny ant walking on it. Now, the ant isn't restricted to just moving back and forth along the length.
Wow. It can also crawl around the circular girth of the hose.
Yes, the circumference.
The circumference is a second dimension.
And that second dimension was physically present the entire time you were looking at the hose from the balcony. It didn't magically pop into existence when you walked up.
But because of your distance and your scale, it was just too tightly curled up, too microscopic for your eyes to resolve from a distance.
Exactly. And the time traveler noted that analogies like this build vital bridges between the familiar and the unknown, because we apply that exact logic to the fabric of reality.
So when we talk about these extra dimensions in string theory,
We're talking about spatial dimensions that are compactified, meaning at every single point in our familiar 3D space, there is supposedly a microscopic, highly complex, 6-dimensional geometric shape completely curled in on itself.
right, physicists call them Calabi-Yau manifolds, right?
Yes, Calabi-Yau manifolds, and they are folded up at incredibly tiny scales. We're talking smaller than the diameter of a proton.
So the tiny strings of energy are vibrating through these microscopic, curled-up geometric shapes.
Right.
And we don't interact with them because our bodies are built out of trillions of atoms, meaning we are vastly too enormous to ever slip into a curled-up microscopic dimension. Just like a human couldn't walk around the circumference of the garden hose like the ant does.
You just glide right past them without ever noticing. They're hiding in plain sight, dictating the fundamental physics of the universe at a scale you can never physically touch.
Okay, the visual of the ant on the hose and these curled-up Calabi-Yau manifolds, it makes tremendous logical sense. It's a gorgeous analogy.
It is.
But we have to put evidence first. We are talking about physics, not poetry. Mathematical elegance does not always equal physical truth.
That is very true.
So has anyone actually ever fired up a particle accelerator, smashed some protons together, and definitively detected one of these curled-up dimensions? Or is this still just mathematically elegant guesswork?
You've hit the exact friction point of modern cosmology right there. I have to frankly admit, there is zero definitive empirical evidence.
Zero.
None whatsoever. We have built massive machines, like the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, hoping to find clues.
Like what kind of clues?
Like perhaps noticing a tiny bit of missing energy after a massive particle collision, which might indicate that a particle briefly slipped into a higher hidden dimension and took some energy with it.
I see.
But so far, the results are empty. Hidden dimensions remain a theoretically promising, mathematically magnificent, but completely unconfirmed hypothesis.
Which raises a really profound question about how we and how the scientific community as a whole handle the lack of definitive proof.
It does.
Because historically, humans have a really low tolerance for ambiguity. We tend to fill the gaps in our knowledge with absolute certainties.
Yeah, that's human nature.
Right. If we don't know why the thunder crashes or why the crops fail, we historically invent a mythology or a strict belief system to explain it definitively. God did it, or the scriptures explain it. We want the comfort of a final answer.
And, a lot of people mistakenly assume science operates the exact same way.
Yeah.
That scientists hate mystery, and that physicists are just building a competing catalog of absolute certainties to replace the old ones.
Right.
But the Time Traveler's Dialogue points out something crucial. Science requires a fundamentally different psychological posture. A solved puzzle is functionally dead to a physicist. Scientists actually love mysteries.
It demands that you sit with the mystery and let it fuel curiosity.
Exactly. It demands an enormous amount of discipline to look at the mathematics of 11 dimensions, realize how perfectly they solve the universe's greatest riddles, and still force yourself to say, I do not know if this is real.
They refuse to mistake imagination for evidence.
Right. It uses the mathematical elegance not as a final belief system, but as a compass pointing toward where we should look next. The time traveler said it best. The unknown is not an enemy. It is an invitation.
The unknown is an invitation. That is such a humbling reflection on this whole journey. We've gone from the math of money to the birth of stars to quantum mechanics, and every answer just opens 10 new questions.
It really does.
It seems like we aren't approaching the end of knowledge, just the end of our ignorance about how much remains unknown.
Yeah, and if we accept that invitation to keep looking, if we tentatively assume the math is right, and there really is a framework of 11 dimensions propping up our reality, the implications are staggering.
Where does it lead us? What does the universe look like at the ultimate scale?
It fundamentally redefines the word universe. Because if 11 dimensions exist, cosmological models suggest that our entire universe might just be a single three-dimensional surface, a membrane, or a brain in physics terminology.
A membrane. Drifting where?
Drifting through a much larger, higher-dimensional cosmic space called the bulk.
So we aren't the whole picture. We are just a tiny slice of the pie.
Exactly, just one slice. And the math implies there could be countless other slices. Entirely separate universes could exist on their own brains, floating within that massive 11-dimensional structure.
The multiverse.
The multiverse, which usually sounds like a convenient sci-fi plot device for a comic book movie.
Oh, totally.
But in string theory and modern cosmology, it is treated as a serious physical consequence of the geometry. If there are 11 spatial dimensions, there is mathematically more than enough geometric room for infinite universes.
Wow.
Another universe could be hovering a fraction of a millimeter away from you right now.
Wait, really? A millimeter?
Separated not by physical distance as we know it, but by a shift along a directional axis you simply cannot perceive. They might have entirely different laws of physics, different particles, completely different forces.
It is staggering. I mean, we started with a simple railroad track. We added a field, we added height, we baked time into the fabric. Then we curled up 6 microscopic dimensions to fix the clash between gravity and the quantum world.
And suddenly we've built a geometric scaffolding that can hold an infinite number of parallel realities.
It completely strips away any lingering sense of cosmic importance, doesn't it? The architecture of existence is just far grander and vastly stranger than the limited biological grid we are allowed to see.
It really is. We are totally blind to the vast majority of the geometric space we occupy.
And to you, listening right now, this is where we will wrap up our journey for today's deep dive. We started by asking you to look around your room and trust the physical boundaries you could see.
And we spent the whole time dismantling that trust.
Exactly, revealing that reality might be folded, curled, and layered in ways our savanna-adapted brains simply cannot process.
But there's one final provocative thought we want to leave you with.
Yes, building on what we've unpacked today. The source text ends by asking what else might be real that we haven't learned to detect. But think about this. The very device you're using to listen to this deep dive right now relies on Wi-Fi and cellular waves.
Right, invisible forces filling the room you are sitting in at this exact moment.
Passing right through your body. Our ancestors, even just a few generations ago, would have called it magic, entirely because they lacked the sensory tools and the technology to detect the electromagnetic spectrum.
Their limited perception told them the air was empty, and they were completely wrong.
So here is the haunting question we want to leave you to mull over. If mathematically sound, 11-dimensional structures are currently hiding in the microscopic fabric of your own body. What entirely new senses or technologies might humanity need to evolve to finally see the true reality of the room you're sitting in right now?
It's quite a mystery to sit with.
It truly is. Until next time, keep exploring the hidden spaces.